I'm thrilled to have all of you here today. At Index, we've been investing in the creator economy for a long time, and we often interact with entrepreneurs and companies, but less often with the creators who are the lifeblood of this economy. And so I'm really excited for this conversation. Josh, you're one of the biggest TikTok creators on the planet. You know, you've got 25 million followers on TikTok. In many ways, in my mind, at least, you embody Gen Z and the Gen Z creator and entrepreneur. Shelby, I've been watching your videos for years now, and you've been one of the leading voices on the business of being a YouTuber. Yuna, you're one of the most innovative creators in the world. I mean, Code Miko is fascinating to me today, and I'm excited for you to share a little bit about what you've built, but you're really pushing the boundaries of what it means to have a digital identity online. And you know, Alex, the Chainsmokers music was literally the soundtrack to my college years, but you've also become such a respected investor, and we've been lucky to invest alongside you at Index. So excited to talk today about what it means to be creators, the challenges and opportunities, and you all know better than anyone how this new economy is evolving. Josh, I want to start with you. I want to ask you about Gen Z. So a lot of people have been talking about, you know, why now when it comes to the creator economy. We've seen digital work booming, you know, what is behind it? And I think a lot of it comes from Gen Z coming of age with different expectations around work, around what it means to have a career and an online presence. But you certainly know better than anyone. So I'm curious to get your view. Why do you think a creator, a life as a creator appeals to Gen Z?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of the boom was definitely this past pandemic. I think that played a big role, having all these people staying at home and them needing to have their creative talents have a new outlet. People were searching for where to go. You know, they couldn't go to the musicals, they couldn't go to the theater. So now with TikTok, they've been able to show off their arts and talents. That's music all the way down to creating funny videos. And as far as for Gen Z, and I think why they're going more in this direction and not doing the conventional 9 to 5 that we've all seen our parents do, is because Gen Z they don't love to ask for permission. They want to do their own thing. They don't want to have a boss overlooking them. They want to be able to invest in themselves, invest with their own money, and it's really causing this new boom. So yeah, that's what I would chalk it up to.
Yeah, I mean, and a related part too, I think, is self-expression, which I've heard you talk about, Josh. I mean, just this way to express yourself online. And Yuna, in many ways, when I think self-expression, I think of you as a creator. You know, Code Miko is a digital persona that you created, and VTubing often lets creators express themselves in very new ways. So I'm curious to hear directly from you. You know, what is VTubing to you? You know, maybe you can do a quick definition for the group, but then also, you know, how did you get into VTubing? What's your story, and why do you think VTubing is an important form of the creator economy?
Yeah, absolutely. So VTubing to me is, as you said, it is like a great way to express yourself in ways that can't really be done in real life. And with VTubing, because it's in 3D and VR space, you can really be whoever you want to be. And you have a lot of creativity in creating your avatar, and also, you know, going beyond that to your environment. And also, if you are a developer like myself, you can create games with your community that you can have in that 3D space. So there's a lot of outlets for VTubing that, you know, traditional media just doesn't give. And so like VTubing to me is like this ultimate self-expression where you can really take your imagination anywhere. And how I got into VTubing was I have a tech background, in that my job before streaming was research and development for live animation. And that essentially is what we know today as VTubing. And but for me, it was for the tech I was building, it was fitted for something like a live streaming platform like Twitch. And that's why when, you know, the team got laid off, I decided to start streaming on Twitch and create my VTuber Code Miko. And that's kind of how I got into VTubing, but I also was a huge fan of things like Ready Player One, The Matrix, and I've always had a love for this thought of like Second Life type of thing, and creating avatars that, you know, represent yourself in a different way. And I stream both as myself and Komiko. And when I stream as Komiko, I feel like I can be more sillier, more kind of crazy and chaotic. I'm more free to be like a different side of myself that I'm not comfortable expressing as when I'm in my own skin, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And was it tough to get going in the early days, or just curious, at the beginning of the pandemic, what were the first few months like for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, Twitch is brutal. Twitch as a platform is wonderful, but it's hard to get discovered on Twitch. And when I first started, I did okay considering that because I was unique and considering most people stay at like 3 viewership for like months, right? But I was able to get up to 100 viewers in my first month. But even with that, I wasn't making enough to pay my rent or the debt that I put myself into to create the project. And then, a couple months in, I kind of created these monetization tools for myself that allowed my viewers to create content for me and also engage with me in kind of like an arcade type fashion. And that helped my project to stay afloat. And it also helped my viewership as well, up till the point where more and more people recognized the project and what I was creating. But that whole process did take 8 months to build. And it took a while for people to see what I was building was very different from what people are used to in the VTuber space.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Shelby, I'm curious to get your view, given, when I think of creator monetization and making a living as a YouTuber, I think of a lot of the content that you've put out. You're very candid about how challenging it can be, especially in the early days for a YouTuber. I'm thinking of one blog post I read of yours that you got a video up to a few million views and I think only made $1,000 or so on YouTube from it. Just you've seen over the years the challenges of monetization for creators. What's your view on the pain points that still exist and how that can be solved for creators?
Yeah, I think it's gotten a lot easier over the years on YouTube specifically. There's just a lot more money, I think, being put into it, whether it's companies that are buying the pre-roll ads, or I think there's just a lot more brand deal offers than there used to be. Also, I think the pandemic kind of played into that because companies weren't shooting commercials as much. They found that they can kind of get more for their money on YouTube. So I think that it's easier than ever to make money on YouTube, especially with the ad break that you can add a second ad. If your video is over 8 minutes long, when they added that, it just like doubled my YouTube ad revenue. So that blog post, it was a video that I had from years ago where it was before you could do that. So it only had one ad. But it's interesting because it's all based on, the topic or where your viewers are based. But I think there's just a lot more information now too on how to monetize on YouTube. There's a lot of creators that are really transparent about it, like I am. I think with YouTube, it's easier than ever. The only platform that I don't see as much is maybe Instagram. They don't have really like a creator fund. Like if you're posting reels on there, you're only going to make money if you're doing brand deals. Like even TikTok, you can make a bit, I believe. I don't think it's like as significant as YouTube, but I think most platforms will probably want to have something like that just to compete with all the other ones. I think even Twitter might have some kind of monetization platform. But otherwise, posting a video, if it's like a 10-minute long video, you can make more if you're posting it on YouTube than on Instagram, and it is usually more searchable and going to get more views. So I think, yeah, probably just the platforms having more incentive for people to post and having some kind of like creator fund.
Mm-hmm. And one interesting trend that I've followed, is creators sort of building a massive audience in one area and then translating that into different platforms. And Alex, I'm curious your view, given that, the Chainsmokers have had such success in music and then shifted that to, investing, entrepreneurship, and other ventures. And we've seen this, with all of our panelists here, with, Josh building your TikTok presence, Shelby on YouTube, Yuna on Twitch. Alex, curious, you built this presence on Spotify and on the stage, but then more recently you've expanded into investing. What's that transition been like, and why do you think more creators might follow your footsteps there?
I mean, I think like creators in general have like a super entrepreneurial sense to them. And I think that's kind of just ingrained in us. And that's why we kind of go off and try to do our own thing and figure out how to be our own bosses. I mean, for Drew and myself, I think we always knew we were going to try to use our platform in music, however that ended up, to branch out into other areas that interested us. And actually, like Jimmy Buffett taught us like a valuable lesson about kind of building businesses for your fans as they go through different stages in their lives, and also like doing things that are inherently part of like what your job is. Value is a huge part of our business, like relationships, obviously entertainment. So we've always, been really interested in exploring wherever that took us. And, we have a tequila company, we have a TV and production company, we have a real estate development business. The learning curve of what that means in order to, be a great investor took time. I think for us in the beginning, it was very passive. But then as we kind of dug in and became, closer with certain founders and people in the community, kind of understood the impact and the role we could have for these companies, and also just how inspiring it is to work with these founders. Like straight up, I think most musicians are fucking lazy and egotistical and are not motivated. And, I find founders in the tech world to be like the complete opposite. And so we really enjoy working in this space and being inspired by them.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you say that too, because I feel like the four of you are some of the hardest working creators that I've seen. I mean, Josh, I can't even count like the number of different businesses you have now. I mean, you've been an investor like Alex, but also just this prolific entrepreneur. And I think, I'm curious to get your view, especially around, in the old days, we might have seen a creator kind of rent their distribution or their feed to a brand, maybe work with Red Bull or Monster or Rockstar, and you chose to launch your own energy drink, Annie Energy. What was going through your head on why you wanted to be an entrepreneur, own your own equity upside, and why do you think creator-led businesses might be one of the new pathways to earning a living as a creator?
Yeah, so when it came to Annie, me and Bryce Hall, fellow creator, and then a bunch of the people over at Talent X Entertainment, along with Evan Burns, came together to do this drink. And what we were doing was really listening to the fans. When me and Bryce were creating videos online on YouTube, we often would shotgun Red Bulls or some sort of energy drink in the video just to add a little bit of that excitement, give the feeling like the video's high energy, it's go, go, go. And what we started realizing was there was a trend being built off on TikTok where kids were starting to shotgun and then challenge me and Bryce, see if they could beat our time, just get in on the challenge. And it was getting millions of views, millions of likes, going all over the platform. So it was really essentially listening to the audience. And it's not always about jumping in and promoting a product. Sometimes you want to let your own ideas kind of take flight. So with Annie, we were able to really harness and get to talk to the fans throughout the whole project, throughout the mission, have them feel like they were a part of it. And recently we were able to launch in multiple Walmarts and had amazing feedback on the product. So for the future, I really hope creator-led businesses are something that we were able to pioneer with people like here on this call and really inspiring others. I just think that in today's creator world, equity is so important, and it's important to own things over just always getting kind of like you're leasing your videos. So yeah, we always feel like own if you can.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you're also a new entrepreneur. I mean, I don't know much about Mikoverse other than that you've started a way to let other people, be VTubers or sort of do what you've done with Code Miko, but curious to hear about your vision for Mikoverse and what you're building too.
Yeah, so Code Mika, what makes her special is that she has what I call very high fidelity mocap, in that she's very expressive with her face. She has full body capture, and not only that, she has a tool where she directly engages with her viewers and chat, and that has helped monetize my channel in ways where before I became big and I was very small, I was able to, using those monetization tools, I was able to keep afloat and stay alive and also pay off my debt. And so what I want to do is basically give those same tools for other creators and give that option of creators that want to have more of a high fidelity mocap, because right now the market is very geared towards 2D anime type, and not everybody wants to be an anime girl or a boy. And so there isn't many tools that allow people to be something like stylistic realism or something that, you know, or a creature, or, you know, I want them to have more of a free creative freedom to create whatever avatars that they want. But not only that, be able to engage with their audience and in ways where the community grows stronger and they help build content with the streamer, and also just have a place to stay and hang out, because I'm creating the app as a multiplayer universe, where the viewers can actually come in and hang out with their streamers. And when the streamers go offline, they still have a place to stay and play games with each other. And that's essentially what Mikoverse is. We're creating the next technology for VTubers, and also unlocking engagement, new ways to engage with your fans, and also monetization.
It's fascinating. I mean, one thing that a few of you have touched on is just this mentality shift of being an equity owner, being an investor, being an entrepreneur, in addition to being an artist and creator. I mean, question for all of you is just, what do you think is driving that? Maybe it's the pandemic, maybe it's Gen Z, but it does feel that like this kind of seismic shift in what it means to work, rather than kind of renting your time to an institution or corporation for 40 or 50 years. I mean, you're all exposed to probably, you know, dozens or hundreds of people who are also part of this economy. You know, what do you think are the tailwinds that are reorienting people's view of a career?
I think for VTubing, it's because I've been in the VTubing space for like 5 years. Before VTubing was big on Twitch, because I was in the tech sector, and the technology kind of came to a point where it was more and more accessible for others, and it happened to line up with the pandemic. And because it became more accessible and people were able to pick it up, and because the pandemic allowed people to stay home, and Twitch was blowing up during, you know, the COVID crisis, it allowed VTubing to really take off. So that's kind of how I see it with VTubing. It was, the technology kind of became accessible, and it was the right timing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep, go ahead, Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think in general, like, you're seeing individuals in different fields like have an opportunity publicly, like on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and like build careers and go out and do that. Whereas before, you kind of, like you said, had to work for the institution. So I think all this new tech is kind of just empowering people to have their own individual voices and personalities. And you're seeing like the fans and communities that they build around them support them. And, you know, all these different companies that we're talking about and investing in, you know, respectively, are enabling people to kind of create careers around these things and, you know, foster a better community. So, you know, back in the day, like pre-Facebook and MySpace, there was just, you know, there was no option to do that. You know, you had to go work at a news agency or, you know, work your way up to get on camera somewhere. And now, you know, all you need is your iPhone. And I think that's, you know, creating a lot of opportunity. And I think it's great to see, you know, people that, you know, otherwise maybe this would have been a hobby, but now their personality becomes their business. I think that's, you know, that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something we talk about at Index a lot is sort of, this is the new kind of, creators are the new, not even small businesses. I think we say that a lot, the new SMBs, but also just the new businesses or enterprises with very large teams and, you know, just more self-directed and flexible work. But also, you know, if you think of the economy that's been built for small businesses or just big companies over the last 50 or 100 years in America, I mean, it's pretty nascent for this space. And changing quickly. I mean, Shelby, I'm curious your view, given you've made videos for better part of 10 years now, you've probably gotten used to a lot of the ups and downs of being a creator, but what are the remaining kind of biggest pain points that you see in this new form of work?
I think one that myself and a lot of other YouTubers always find difficult is to find good editors, because that's something that takes up most of our time as a YouTuber if you're editing your own videos. And a lot of us are very like protective of the style of that. So it can't just be any random person that you find online. I feel like it also, after a while, it can be so much footage to send over. It can take an entire day just to send that footage. And then for the person to edit it, send a rough cut back, it can just get really time consuming. So that's one thing, is finding good editors that can really match the style of the YouTuber. And then also I think one thing that's difficult is just so many new platforms always being out there, just finding ways to, I guess, repurpose and cut that footage, because you only have so many hours in the day, and YouTube takes enough time by itself. So adding in like TikTok, Instagram Reels, Facebook, everything, that kind of gets difficult, because you don't want to spread yourself too thin and be making just okay videos, I find. So I found that kind of difficult, is like just making content for every platform.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Alex, you're an investor. Josh, you're an investor. I mean, Shelby, you've angel invested alongside Index. You know, you're an entrepreneur. I mean, you probably all are exposed to a lot of startups building in the creator economy. We certainly see a lot, but I'm curious, what are your views of what companies have yet to be created that need to be built for this space? You know, what are the gaps in the market? Alex, maybe we'll start with you, but you know, what's not out there that needs to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now we're seeing like a shift across like all different industries where, you know, you had these big players, like in my case, the record labels, that controlled, you know, a big portion of your royalties, and obviously working in tandem with Spotify and Apple Music. And, you know, obviously there was a time when that was great. They were handling, you know, actual compact discs and, you know, roadshow and all these mechanical royalties and things. But now it's just a function of email. So I think like, you know, we're going to see through like the DeFi and blockchain and, you know, all the things happening in the crypto space, hopefully a shift back to the creator. And I think you see this with like Patreon and sites like Cameo, where, you know, the power is going from like the Facebook and from the Google and back to the creator. And because I think like the royalty splits are just bullshit across the board, no matter whether you're on YouTube or Twitch or TikTok or whatever. I mean, they're generating, you know, billions and billions of dollars off the back of our creativity and our art. So I know there are platforms always out there talking about how they want to, you know, empower the band's communities more and make more money for artists. And, you know, the 97% of people on Spotify don't even make, you know, $10,000 off their, you know, songs. I think there's like truth to that, in the sense that like, yes, the splits suck, and there should be a platform and space where you can, you know, really foster a gay community and be supported. Like I thought Big Cloud had a lot of potential in terms of how your community can rally around you and create value. But also like 90% of musicians suck. So I think on some level, you know, it's like, we're not going to save everybody, but I think that, you know, you can find, you know, a happy medium where hopefully these platforms and, you know, the next YouTube and the next Facebook and the next TikTok, you know, it's not owned by one person, it's owned by everybody. And, you know, you're actually paid for what you do properly.
Yeah. Josh, curious your view. I mean, you're a VC now too. You meet a lot of companies. You know, what do you most want to see out there that entrepreneurs could be building?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to specifically like Gen Z and where Gen Z is going with everything and how I want to see that get built, I think that building not just the platforms for things like DeFi and to trade, but actually getting more into the educational side of it. I think with like, for example, Wonderfy, like actually teaching the youth on what they're investing into, what they're doing, because it is a space that we're seeing so much intrigue into right now. Oh, even my 12-year-old younger brother comes up to me and will talk to me about cryptocurrency and what it is, but they aren't getting the full education on it. So some of them are going and investing into those coins that are just pump and dump scams or areas that they shouldn't be in yet. And with platforms like Wonderfy or other platforms out there, they can finally start to really learn and harness in on that skill and that young creativity they have as kids. So I think that's the most important direction.
Mm-hmm. And something both of you are touching on is sort of this idea of removing gatekeepers. You know, right now, a lot of the kind of legacy infrastructure of media, of creativity, of art, really for the last few centuries has been, you know, kind of monopolized by these brokers and intermediaries. You know, music's a great example with record labels. But now, I mean, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, a lot of these platforms are also kind of the new intermediaries that are taking a lot of the lion's share of value. I'm curious for all of you, I mean, maybe crypto is the answer, but what are the other answers to not being so reliant on platforms and for creators to have a better ownership of their art and their creativity and their community?
I think a lot of people kind of find that it's sort of old school, but they'll have like an email list. so that they just have something that is actually going to reach their audience if they're actually checking their email, which I think a lot of people do. Because with YouTube, you can't always rely on the algorithm. Like sometimes it's not going to send it to everyone. I think now it mostly does. But that's one that I see people do, or just having like Patreon or something like that, where they can just, rely on it a little bit more. But I could see people even making their own platforms where it's not on Patreon, but their own website sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think you saw this a lot in the literary community, like Substack writers leaving like big publications and joining, creating a newsletter and getting paid for it. I think it's just like the belief in yourself. I think like people like Josh and everyone on this call, like doing these major steps themselves, you're kind of trailblazing and saying it's okay to go out there and, whether you're an independent artist or whatever, and use all these new tools to create something big and not necessarily have to fall trapped to like the same thing. Like we're in a record deal, like I'm totally, full of shit. Like we did it, but I think at the end of the day, like we have plans, this next album to hopefully make some really interesting moves. And it's important when people see it, and you kind of need proof of concept, and then you start believing. But like, if you're leaving the New York Times to send out a Substack letter, like, I mean, that guy had balls, you know what I mean? He's leaving like a great, media company to go shoot out emails, and like the proof is in the pudding. Like these writers are making infinitely more money now doing less work and writing about things that they are interested in. So just got to have balls, I guess, to do it.
I think that like you have a good point about how Twitch and YouTube takes a huge cut from the creators. And I think both platforms are amazing and they're great, but I think we need more platforms that give better tools for monetization to the creators. And that's kind of why I started my Mikoverse startup project, is so that I can because I built tools for myself to help monetize the small audience I had. And there's so many fun ways you can do that. But having a platform that specifically just is there to build tools for the creators to get creative with is something that I think would help, monetize creators like in a way where they have the power to make the tools, if that makes sense. You're creating the tools so that they can make more tools for their streams.
What do you think, that those tools will be? Because we've seen, in the past, and I am nowhere near as creative or talented as anyone on this call, but I very briefly sort of made money on Instagram back in the day with lots of cringeworthy sponsored posts. And, I think in a time when you had to rely a lot on brand deals, and that's still true for a lot of creators. And maybe the answer is tipping or ticketing or, micropayments and maybe creator currencies or tokens. But, curious, maybe starting with you, what are the tools you built for your audience? But beyond advertising and ad share, what are the ways that creators can really earn income from their communities?
Yeah, so because of my experience as a VTuber, and it really, I think what I'm talking about really does only apply for Twitch and VTubing and live streaming. But for me, I created tools where I made Miko into kind of like an arcade game, where if someone throws a certain number of bits, she'll, fart or she'll explode, or there'll be stuff that happens in her world. And there's other miniature games that I've created where we had a pizza topping contest where we had a menu, and the first 8 pizza toppings would make it onto the pizza. And that created a whole war inside my community of like what pizza topping they needed to be on top. And in order to vote, you had to spend like, $1 to vote. But $1 to one person isn't much, but it starts adding up and it starts generating a good revenue for the creator. So fun things like that. And all those things that I've built for Miko can be replicated for other things. Like that pizza topping thing doesn't have to be for pizza toppings. It could be for any voting type system. Or even like the little props and arcade stuff that I built for Code Miko. You can switch out all the props and make it about something else. And so just creating these, flexible tools that can make the creator play with it and create their own spin on things, if that makes sense. And that's kind of what helped my monetization a lot, especially when I was a small creator.
Well, in our last few minutes, I mean, I'm most curious, all of you are successful creator entrepreneurs, across all platforms and different business lines. What's one piece of advice that you would give someone who maybe is a burgeoning creator, but also wants to be more of a formalized business and be an entrepreneur? Maybe Shelby, we can start with you. What advice would you give them?
I think if someone's just starting out with, say, YouTube or something, it's just to be persistent, because I see so many people start for a month or two and then sort of give up, or like not judge your first videos too harshly, because if you go back to any YouTube channel, like the first videos are probably kind of cringy and not very good, and that's totally normal and just a part of the process. And yeah, I think it's just you learn as you go. You don't need to know everything starting out, especially with YouTube, that it's like you don't have to have the best production value ever. People aren't going to YouTube for that. So yeah, I think just being persistent really is the biggest thing with YouTube, and kind of learning along the way, like how to get better.
Mm-hmm. Josh, I know you spent many hours live streaming and on Musical.ly back in the day, and it wasn't exactly overnight success. It took a while to sort of get going, but now you've translated into many different business lines. What advice would you give to someone who's maybe daunted by how many creators and how much content there is today?
Yeah. I mean, of course, like it's always a lot more hard work than people think it is, right? It's always like the grass is greener on the other side situation. So when people are looking in at creators, they often think it's like, I'll post a video, you'll be fine. But it was like 3 years before I started getting really traction on social media and started booming. So it's putting in that commitment. It's putting in that consistency, like Shelby was talking about. I mean, I was posting 5 videos a day on TikTok and going live every night for 4 hours. So it definitely takes a lot of time. But I think even more than that, when you want to move into the business world, it's really important. And this is something I say a lot, but know what you know and know what you don't know. The reason we're able to spread out and do so many companies and be able to be successful in so many as well is because we're bringing in the right people. When we go and build out Annie Energy, it's bringing in people like Evan Burns that has built a drink before with Miles Teller, has done this in the space. So I think it's the work ethic. It's putting your head down and making sure you just go. And then it's also knowing what you know and knowing what you don't.
Yep. It's awesome. Alex, I mean, you probably mentor a lot of young artists and creators. What advice do you give them?
I don't. But don't ask me anything. That's kidding. But I think it's important to find your voice. I mean, I think that especially true in music, probably with everything. That's how you stand out. You find what is unique about what you're making and interesting, and really focusing on that. That was like a big part of our early days was what is our sound and how do we innovate on it and bring it to our fans and cultivate that culture around it. But I agree with everything Shelby said, like, also not taking it too personal. Like, you got to put stuff out there and learn from those experiences of what, worked, what doesn't work. And that you can only get that experience by trying. So, I wouldn't say like, hold on to things too sacredly. Like, I need to make the perfect video. You learn a lot by releasing music and seeing how people interact with it, the process of marketing it and promoting it. And just, don't give up. There's no such thing as an overnight success. You really have to grind. And, I think the expression of like, when you think of, an artist that comes out of nowhere, like even like a Lil Nas X, which, right now seems crazy because he's one of the biggest artists on the planet. 2 years ago, no one knew who this guy was, but I guarantee you he's been working on this project for his whole life, ready for this moment. So.
Yeah, he's one of the savviest kind of internet people out there too. I mean, it's incredible to watch. But I mean, I've read about you, wake up early to dev, then you stream late into the night. It didn't exactly it seemed like you from the outside have had such a rapid rise, but I know a lot of work went in as well. But for VTubers starting out, or just Twitch streamers, YouTubers, what advice would you give, or even a new kind of creator entrepreneur building their own startup?
Yeah, I think as Alex and Shelby and everyone else has touched on, it's really about consistency and also being unique, especially with how oversaturated Twitch and YouTube is. You really have to find what is unique about yourself and try to market that in a way where people also see that too. I think for me to get to the point where I was, I think there was a lot of hard work, but I do think that I do think there was some luck involved because I was at the right, I happened to be into VTubing at the right time when VTubing was blowing up. And when there really wasn't anyone that was doing VTubing like I was doing. And I think that's what made me stand out a lot in that VTuber space. Otherwise, it really is about consistency and looking at things in the long term, because I did have a rapid I overgrew really fast over a course of 2 weeks, but that was like a short-term gain in a long-term persistent, consistent brand. And I really think that the people that can play that long-term game wins at the end. So definitely look at things in the long term.
Yep. Awesome. Well, last question, Alex, when's the new album coming?
Dude, it's done. We're mastering it. It's good. It's really good. I'm sorry, everybody.
Okay.
You made everyone wait that's watching this. I promise you haven't taken it around.
We're ready for it.
Yeah.
We're ready for it.
We're ready to drop it. It sucks. I feel like a loser doing I'm a venture capitalist only right now. This is terrible.
That's how I feel every day. So I appreciate that. Good note to end on. No, but thank you all. I mean, as someone who, again, is very, very less creatively inclined and talented, I mean, it's great to hear all of you. And I really admire your creativity and art and talent and how you're pushing forward this new kind of digital economy and form of work. So thank you for the time, and excited to keep tracking you all. So
appreciate it, Rex. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.